Hi, welcome to Empower Her. My name is Priya, and I have a very special guest with me today, Jessica. Hi, Jessica. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
So, if you're listening to us for the first time, this podcast is all about women empowerment. So, in each episode, I invite different leaders from different industries to talk about their journey so that other women can benefit from their learnings and their, mistakes, their successes as well, and then apply that to their own lives. My hope is to basically inspire and encourage and give people the resources they need, especially women, to thrive in their careers. So I'll give a quick introduction about Jessica here. So I reached out to Jessica, I think on LinkedIn. We had done a session at a nonprofit. I think I was doing a course in business, and that's where they had invited you as a guest to talk about marketing, basically. And I was really impressed by that coaching session she did, and I was like, oh, I definitely need to have her on the podcast. So Jessica is basically a business and marketing leader, which help companies drive growth and operational efficiency. She has a background, from different industries, from health and wellness to e-commerce and SaaS. And she leads multi-channel marketing initiatives, digital transformation, and also develops go-to-market strategies. She's a founder of GU, which I will let Jessica talk about more. But do you want to share any kind of things from your journey so far with the audience?
Yeah, so I've not had a linear journey. It's been quite a few. I've tried a lot of different things in a lot of different industries, but it's kind of led me to where I am today. And having such a diverse experience just gives you a lot of chance to learn more about what else is out there, things that you didn't think were possible or didn't know existed. So having all of that experience has really been really beneficial to where I'm at now.
Definitely. And we're really excited to talk about your journey here because, especially as an entrepreneur, I feel like people talk about their successes, and we definitely want to do that. But I also want to emphasize on learnings and what people call failure. Different people have different definition of failures, and I feel like we've always been taught that it's a bad thing, but from any person that I've spoken to, whether they are leaders, whether they're working in the corporate market, or whether they're working as an entrepreneur, everybody has talked about their failures, and how they led to success. So this is kind of like the theme of the podcast, and I definitely want to encourage you to share as much as you can, and I think that's what the audience would resonate with, that there's so many things that people learn from trying new different things. So let's start with going back to your background. When it comes to your education, was it completely different from marketing, or were you hoping to do something else in the beginning?
Yeah, so when I first got to school, I actually went in to do sports science kinesiology, and I ended up failing Chem 100. And after that, I was like, "This is not for me. I'm not going to do this." And so I kind of went to different university, like the little talks that they have about the different programs, and I ran into marketing at BCIT. And at the time, I just didn't really know much about it. So I went to the info session and realized that it was something that I was quite interested in. So I went for the tourism marketing degree at BCIT, and it was great. I had a good time, and at the time, and I still am very passionate about traveling. So that's kind of what drew me into the program. My first job out of school was actually as a travel agent. So one of the many twists and turns of things that I've tried. But my education is in marketing. And I would say that that's definitely helped me along the way of running businesses and throughout my career.
Definitely. Um, and then you transition from, structured corporate roles into founding GU and GUbox. What mindset shifts were most crucial in, moving by the books into entrepreneurial freedom?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. When very early on in my career, I knew that my goal was to be able to really, it was work from wherever in the world and be able to work from a beach. And at the time I was in a job, I was in a sales role. So I was selling audit management software, which was just terrible for me. And I was working East Coast time in a Vancouver-based company, so I was getting to work for 6:30 in the morning, doing cold calling sales, and I hated it. And at the time, my boyfriend, now husband, he was running his business, and I could see how he was able to make his own schedule and drive his own life and his own career. And seeing that was really eye-opening for me because most of my upbringing, everyone was more in the corporate space. They had the 9 to 5 jobs. And so my exposure to entrepreneurship and running your own business was not really something that I had really ever thought about. But being in that role where I was really just unhappy and seeing what the other side could look like was really kind of that push for me to try something different.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like there's, so many things that, people are scared of when it comes to, like, especially moving from the corporate to the entrepreneurial, space, because, and those are very valid fears as well, I feel like, because, there's so many things that you need to consider. And when you compare both of them, there's obviously, pros and cons to both.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So how did that go with you? Did you, have any kind of fears when it?
I think at the time I was young and naive, so not a lot of fears. If you ask me now, I'd have a lot more concerns, but I was 25 at the time and I had just moved out of my parents' house and my mindset at that time was that I'm young. I have a lot of time to try new things. I have a lot of time to fail and then try again if this doesn't work out. So I think at the time it was the bold naiveness of what would happen in a business. I think, of course, finances is always a concern. You've always got to think about where you are at financially. But other than that, most of my life was pretty stable. So there wasn't any major things, no mortgage, no kids or anything like this at that time.
Yeah, I think that that is a very good point, which is what you said is, you were young, and that actually gives you kind of like an advantage because you do have time
Yeah.
to recover. Because obviously, as you age, someone in their 40s or 50s, they like stakes are really high for them.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think that's a really good point as well. So, um, when it comes to, as we were talking about before, um, mistakes. So, I bet there were like so many mistakes in your journey, but is there one particular one, that stands out to you?
Hmm. Yeah, I think for me, it's always finances. And at the time, it was kind of ignorance is bliss. You're like, okay, I know I have this much money in my bank account and my credit cards or my lines of credit are at this. I'm going to be okay. I have access to cash. Um, but I would always advise anyone who is starting out their entrepreneurial journey, thinking about even starting a side hustle, even if you have a full-time job, to really understand your finances. Because that was the ultimate kind of nail in the coffin for GUbox, which is a product-based business, which was very cash. heavy. You need to have cash up front to have a product-based business like that. Whereas when you've got a service-based business, you're trading your time for money. So it is a little bit easier to manage, although you do have to make your own sales and bring in your own clients. But finances is so important, and finances, accounting, numbers was not my strong suit. And so that was the first thing that I outsourced. So I actually got an accountant and a bookkeeper to do the bookkeeping, do the finances, because for me, it was worth it to pay for that to be done the right way the first time versus me trying to stumble around with it, not understand how to do the taxes properly, doing the bookkeeping. There was much better use for my time than doing that. So I would say if bookkeeping, finances, accounting is not your strong suit, that's probably where I would look first to make sure that all of your books are in order. Because if you do start running your business and your tax filings and things are out of order, that's where you can get really caught, and then it becomes a really big headache. So I would always say, like, just make sure you know what your finances are like. Make sure that you understand how much you spend personally in a month, how much you need to run your business. I ended up getting into a lot of debt, and it took me a few years to pay it off. But from that mistake, I now understand where every single dollar, personal or business, goes, and a much better understanding of how to manage it. So it's an expensive lesson, but I'm in a much better place financially to understand how to not make those mistakes again.
Yeah, definitely. And this is something that I hear all the time. So I feel like, this is a very common kind of mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make when it comes to finances, because, there was someone else that I had also invited on the podcast, and she was talking about the same thing, where she was like, you need to be very financially aware
Mm-hmm.
of, how financially stable you are while going into a business. So because people sometimes they just get excited with
Yes.
like a business idea, and if you don't have like a lot of financial security or financial backup,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, things can become really difficult. um, so yeah, I think that that's a really valid point. So when it comes to businesses and starting your own business, and becoming an entrepreneur, I feel like this is something like from my own personal experiences. You because in these times, there's definitely an advantage that we have like so many resources out there. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's like YouTube videos,
Yeah.
there's courses, there's so many blogs, there's so many people talking about how to start your business. But what would be your advice, from what you've learned so far, if someone is like looking to get into business? um, is there like a couple of things that you would recommend to someone, um, which doesn't make them like too overwhelmed with
Yeah.
all this information out there? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, first one's finances. So outside of the finances, though, I would say don't quit your day job. Keep your job for as long as you possibly can while you do your business. And I would start the business as a side hustle. The reason for that is because if you've got the job, you've at least got stability income wise. So you don't need to rely on your business to immediately generate revenue, because more likely than not, it's going to take a few years before you generate revenue and are profitable and are able to pay yourself out anything, especially a living wage in in Vancouver and in Toronto. It's really expensive. So don't quit your day job. I have a lot of people that I talk to. They're like, I have this business idea. I think I'm going to start it. When should I leave my business? And it's like, don't leave it yet. You want to make sure that your side hustle is actually going to be profitable and something that you can manage. Obviously, it's different if you're in a toxic work environment or you need to get out of there. But for the most part, if you're in a job, and what I hear a lot is I'm bored in my job or there's not really any growth. And so But that's, to me, that's almost the golden opportunity to start a business, because if you're bored, it means you've got brain capacity and probably a little bit of time to do some stuff on the side. Maybe you're only having to work, 5 to 6 hours out of an 8 hour day. You've got a few extra hours to slide into something else. Or even post work, you've got time to do some extra things. So don't quit your day job. Start it as a side hustle as long as you can. And that will give you enough time to try some things out, have some things fail, pivot probably multiple times, see if you actually like it. Because once you start it as a business, and a lot of people start businesses out of a passion that they have, it might take the fun out of that passion. So really test it out to see if it's something that you're going to want to do long term.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point as well. I mean, I was reading a book where they had talked about this thing as well, where sometimes people definitely want to like pursue their passion and have their passion
Mm-hmm.
pay them, and that's like someone's dream, I would say. But sometimes, yeah, that's what happens. It takes the fun out of that passion, and it's not giving you that joy anymore.
Yeah.
So you have to like try different things and see what works and what doesn't work. um so when it comes to being an entrepreneur, another really big point that often comes up with a lot of people that I've heard is when you become an entrepreneur and go into it full time, you want to do everything by yourself, because
Yes.
obviously you don't have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
You're excited. You're like, I can do it. I have time. And so you want to do everything by yourself. Like, as you said, whether it's like finances, whether it's like business related things, whether it's, marketing, sales, all those things. And then eventually they kind of like, go into a burnout. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when they have to like maybe take a step back and see, how do I, go about these things. So is that something that, kind of happened with you as well, or were you aware about it a little bit more?
Yeah, when I had GU Box, I was doing everything other than the finances, as I mentioned. And when you are a solopreneur, you do have to you're responsible for everything getting done. I did end up doing quite a bit of things by myself, and that's normal when you get started. I think in the maybe second or third year, I was able to hire an intern to help with things like social media, creating content, blogs, and things like this. I think when you're a entrepreneur, you feel like you have to do everything, but there's definitely a fine line between doing everything and outsourcing and figuring what you can and can't do. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should.
Hmm.
Um, and I think when it comes to simple things like scheduling out social media or writing blog content, that's something you could find an intern for or use Fiverr for. I mean, now there's AI. I don't even know how I had a business without AI. That is a
True.
whole feat in itself. And so a lot of the marketing, the operations, the business brainstorming you can help use AI to help you a lot. It's not always going to help you execute on that, but I think being adaptable to what tools are out there nowadays is key to success. Because for me, it might take me 3 4 hours to write a blog post, but with AI, and I don't want to sound like one of those people who throws everything into AI, but with the right prompts, and prompt engineering your AI, you can get a really solid blog post in a couple of hours of a lot of tweaking and finding all these things. So I would say just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. Outsource what makes sense. So if, especially I find with people who I talk to who start businesses, their background is not in marketing. They start because of their passion. I have a friend who wanted to start like a perfume business, and if their background's not in marketing, they understand how to do these perfumes really well, but they don't know how to then get it out to the market, how to make a marketing plan or have people understand or even know that their product exists. So if that's not your strong suit, there are a lot of different ways that you can get help for an affordable price. So freelancers, contractors, Fiverr and Upwork, things like this are really great ways to get quick help on a budget before you're able to actually hire a part-time person.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's no shame in, hiring someone or
Oh,
getting
not
help
at all.
from, an expert in something that, whether, as you said, doesn't matter if you can do it or you can't do it. It's all about, like, balancing out everything, because otherwise you're not really putting like quality work out there because you're so burnt out. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
you want to spend time where you work in your zone of genius. So if marketing or maybe it's business operations is just a huge pain for you, maybe you're not the most organized person, get help for that. There's VAs for that who can help you with that, because the more time you spend in things that you're not good at, but you can do, the more it'll burn you out a lot faster. You're not going to be as happy, and you won't be able to spend as much time growing your business or ideating on what you want to do next, or maybe it's sales if you get stuck in having to do a lot of the execution work. So really think about, where do you work best? What are you best at? What do you absolutely hate doing that you're also not good at? See where you can find some help.
Definitely. Um, and then when it comes to, you know, starting a business, and obviously, when you did that, there's a lot that, it takes someone to do that. Um, were there like any mentors or any people that supported you in that journey initially? Because obviously, you were new. Even
Mm-hmm.
though there's like so much information, out there, you do feel like, you need someone to, like, you have questions, often come across like different kind of obstacles. So,
Mm-hmm.
who was, or if there were multiple people that you reached out to for things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of people and community that I found along the way. So one, of course, was my husband. He had just he'd done all the groundwork before, so it was great to see him. He could help me, tell me, like, how do you register your business, or what's the best structure for it. So that was really great to be able to just have that immediate help to bounce ideas off of. I also did a program called E-Series, which through FWE, which is now the Forum. So through that, I met a mentor, Vivian McCormick. She's one of the co-founders of Willet. So I met her through that program, and she was really great. But I also met a lot of other entrepreneurs around the same stage as me through programs like that. I think at the time, like, Facebook groups were a really big thing. So I was in a lot of Facebook groups. The one that I can recall is called Girl Gang. I don't know if they're still around. But I met a lot of people who were in similar positions as me. And so having community of other women who understand the struggles that you're going through, who are in the same place, is really helpful. Because yes, of course, it's great to have mentors who are ahead of you, who can kind of give you a heads up on what to look at. But it was great to have other people who were where I was at, because we were all kind of going through the same struggles at the same time. So you could have a really great group discussion on, here's something I'm thinking of, or here's a challenge that I'm having. What do you think? Have you seen this before? Do you think this idea would work? And it becomes more of like a community of people who are at the same place as you. And these were women who were not just in product-based businesses, but they would also be in service-based businesses or adjacent businesses. So, something that someone might be struggling with in a service-based business, maybe a strategy that you would use in a product-based business actually works really well, and it transfers over. So it's really great to have that. So I did have an official mentor, but I think what was also really important with having people who were at my level to really just bounce ideas off of and brainstorm with.
No, that's awesome. And that's something that I, really recommend to a lot of people, is like finding those people and,
Mm-hmm.
connecting with as many people as possible, and, finding even like, a mentor or something, because I think that really helps, because you do need a lot of support in
Yeah.
that journey. So, um, that is amazing. And so let's talk a little bit about, when you were talking like about your husband, and how he's an entrepreneur as well. So I just want wanted to, focus a little bit on, how you manage relationships as an entrepreneur, and especially when it's two of you who are entrepreneurs. So, um, in the beginning, I feel like, there must have been, kind of like a way where there was like kind of you were two were figuring out like how to balance, relationship and, being an entrepreneur. So can you talk a little bit more about, how things changed, I guess,
Mhm.
when you changed from like a corporate to an entrepreneur space?
Yeah. It's from when we first met, he was just starting his business. So he was always doing things and, didn't just have all the time in the world. So from the get go, I was pretty used to him being busy and needing to find other things and myself needing to find other things to do. But when I first left the corporate world, it was great. We would go to the office every day together and see each other all the time. But where it got really hard was obviously like the finances. So with him being a full-time entrepreneur, money would come and go, or it would be late, or it was not consistent. And so throughout that time, I did have 9 to 5 jobs or corporate jobs. So if you and your partner are both wanting to, start your own businesses or be entrepreneurs, it's definitely doable, but it is pretty tough, especially if you haven't got your finances in order. So I would say, if possible, have one person have that 9 to 5 job, just so you've got the steady income and the peace of mind. It's doable without, but it definitely makes it a lot easier when one person's got that 9 to 5 job. It's easier to get rent, or if you just have like life expenses, just knowing you've got that steady income.
Mhm.
But when you are both entrepreneurs, you really do, we were looking at our finances very closely all the time. And eventually the money runs out and it does get really stressful. You're using a lot of credit for a lot of things. You're thinking, okay, this deal has to come through so we can pay for this thing. Um, so on a financial side of things, it can get pretty tough. But again, if you understand your finances, maybe talk to a financial advisor or something like this to really help map out what it would look like if you were to both leave 9 to 5 jobs and
Mhm.
both start entrepreneurial journeys, and look at, say, what is the startup cost for each of your businesses? How much money are you going to need to operate your business to start and on a monthly basis, and see if that makes sense. I think relationship wise, though, we did come up with some boundaries, because you end up just talking about business. It's your job and your hobby, it's your whole life. So there would be times where we would just be talking about business and I would have to say, I can't talk about this anymore. And we would just have to switch topics.
Mhm.
Communication is so important. And it's probably, I know it sounds so cliche to say it, but if you cannot communicate with your partner on what you need or what your boundaries are or what's important to you, it's going to be really tough, because there has been so many times where we've needed to rely on our communication of, here's how I'm feeling, or I need to work really late and do these things. And if those communication barriers were too high, we wouldn't get that far. And even now, we're always constantly working on our communication and saying, when things have to change, how that impacts our daily lives. I think another thing that was really important was Saturdays was our day. So if I wasn't around, my husband would be working 7 days a week. So he could
Mhm.
just do it forever. But I had to say, I need that time together for us to feel like I'm in a healthy relationship and
Mhm.
spending time with you. So Saturdays, I think, since we started dating, was always the day that nobody would work. We won't make social plans unless we're both doing them together. That's the one day that we are always like, nope, this is our day together. And that has never changed. I think that has really helped me keep my sanity in the relationship. Um, and of course, it's flexible, but for the most part, Saturdays is for us. And I think that's probably been the best thing that we did for our relationship.
Mhm.
Um, and we'd also try to have dinners together every night. So sometimes we're watching TV, sometimes we're at the table, but we always make an effort to have dinner together, even if it means that he's having dinner, taking a break, and then going back to work later. We've always done dinners together as a pretty non-negotiable.
Amazing. Yeah, I think it's all about, first of all, as you said, communication. And then second of all is the boundaries part as well. So, setting those boundaries, whether it's, you know, saying that, oh, okay, we're not going to talk about work too much, or, setting some kind of routines as well. As you
Hmm.
said, like, Saturdays is only, our day kind of,
Yeah.
where we just, spend time together. So yeah, I think that can definitely help. So when it comes to, um, of course, even with doing all these things, there's times when, sometimes your work life does, spill out into your personal life as well. So how do you reset it? Is it, with communication, or, is there any other strategies that, you've come across?
For us, what works is I will just straight up say, I can't, I don't have the brain space for this right now. I can't talk about this right now. Or, we'll say, we won't talk about this. We have a dog, right? And so you have to take the dog for a walk and say, we're not going to talk about work during this walk. It really is just verbalizing it. I think being, just being honest with how you're feeling is also really important. I don't know if other relationships, people are hesitant to tell their partner that they don't want to talk about something or they're uncomfortable. But for us, we've always been very open about how we're feeling and what tolerance or brain space we have for certain types of conversations. And I found that that's been very helpful. And one partner's like, I can't talk about work right now, and then the conversation will just change, and that's the end of it. There's no explanation needed or any hard feelings about it.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's really good advice. Um, so when it comes to, your ventures, what do you foresee in the future for them?
Yeah, so I am working on a new project called Homes Almanac. So it's a neighborhood guide for locals. So I'm originally from Vancouver and moved to Toronto. And when I moved to Toronto, I did not know anything about the different neighborhoods. I didn't know what the vibes were like, the people or the restaurants or, all of those types of things. And so I realized that there was nothing for that. A lot of information about tourist stuff, but I really wanted to know, what do locals live like? Where do they eat? Where do they get groceries? How walkable is the neighborhood? Um, and so that's what Homes Almanac is. And so it lists places. It's not everything, it's not every Subway or McDonald's that's on the street, but it's places worth visiting that locals like to be at and hang out at. Um, because it's something that I felt was missing in Toronto, and it also includes Vancouver as well. So being from there, I definitely know the neighborhoods a lot better, but I've been in Toronto now for the last 4 years, and if I were to go back to Vancouver, I understand the general gist of the demographics and the vibes of each neighborhood, but they're constantly changing, and there's always new places coming up. Different generations moving into different neighborhoods. I know when I was in Vancouver, Langley is really, and probably still is, a really big up and coming neighborhood and city for millennials, because can't afford to live in Vancouver anymore. And so where in Langley are people moving to? What types of places are there to be at and hang out at? One of the big topics for Homes Almanac is third places. So these are places that are not home or work, but they're places where you can still hang out and be at. So a lot of the times that could look like a coffee shop. Coffee shops are great places for people to have a meeting or read a book or work from. And so those are kind of like OG third places. But here in Toronto, there are some really cool boutique hotels that have lobbies that really act like lounges where you can hang out at, and you don't necessarily have to be a guest, but you can grab a coffee, or they turn into a bar at night so you can grab a cocktail in the evening time. But during the daytime, you'll find people reading a book or meeting with people or working. And so I think it's a really great angle to view places to be at. You don't have to be at a place with intention. You can be at a place just to be.
Yeah, that's amazing. That sounds like a really, really good idea. And yeah, I can't wait to see that. Um, and then where can people find
Holmes Almanac.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's the website is homesalmanac.com. So it's Holmes. So like the farmer's almanac.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
so it's called
Gotcha.
Holmes Almanac. And the site is live now. We have a interactive map of both Vancouver and Toronto of some places that we've started listing. And it's,
Nice.
starting out with places that we really like to visit. And we would bring our friends and family to if they were coming to visit or if we want to hang out at. But there are a few places on there that we frequent quite a bit.
Okay. I'll definitely be checking that out.
Yeah.
Amazing. Um, and then my other question was going to be about, your advice. So, as a marketing expert, what kind of advice would you give to someone who's, let's say, is a solopreneur and they're, marketing their business? Is there any particular advice that you would give to them when it comes to the marketing side of things?
Yeah, I would say get a website and your socials up as soon as possible, and then start collecting emails as soon as you can. I think the email side of thing depends on what type of business you've got, but just if you're thinking about starting a business, buy the domain name and start a website. Just because you want to own as much as you can. So if you were to start just an Instagram page, which I would still recommend, but what would you do if Instagram died tomorrow? You would have nothing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
owning a domain like a website is a really great place to start, and I always highly recommend it. I think websites can be intimidating for a lot of people, but platforms like Shopify, if you're on e-commerce, or Squarespace, if you are a service-based business, those are two platforms that I always recommend to people to start off with and just get it up and running. They're drag and drop. There's tons of tutorials. Shopify has great resources on their website. So I would highly recommend just getting your website up and running. Get your social media domain names or usernames. Just get those, because once you have them, you don't necessarily have to do anything with them, but they're a starting place for when you are ready. And then before you launch, you want to have an audience to launch to. So that was one of the mistakes that I made with GUBox is I launched the business and the social and the emails kind of around the same time. And the problem with that is if you have not built up an audience before you launch, you have no one to launch to. And then you're really, really scrambling. So obviously the website's important, but I would say try and build up your email list and your social media following as quickly or for as long as you can. So when you are ready to launch, you have an audience to launch to, and you know that that audience has some sort of interest in what you're doing, because you're going to be pushing out content to them. Emails is usually the most impactful because people literally have to give you their email address. So you definitely know that they're going to be a pretty hot lead or potential customer if they've given you their email address. For emails, I really like Klaviyo. So they are built to go hand in hand with Shopify. You can definitely use them if you're a service-based business. What I like about Klaviyo is they've got really good resources and tutorials, but they've also got a really robust email templates and automated flows, which automated flows is a little bit more advanced, but when someone signs up to your email list, you want them to automatically receive at least one welcome email saying, hey, thanks for joining our list. Here's what we do. So Klaviyo is really good for that. If Klaviyo feels a bit too intimidating, MailChimp is still good. It's been around forever. I think it's one of the OGs. So Klaviyo is really good. MailChimp is really good if you just want something really, really simple. If you are doing a service-based business, HubSpot is good. It is a bit of a bigger beast because it's also a CRM and you kind of have to pay for extra automated marketing. So HubSpot is a bit better if you're doing more one-to-one sales, or if you're a service-based business and you want to keep a list of leads and see where you're at with nurturing them. But on the marketing side, the Klaviyo and MailChimp are going to be the best bets, paired with your website, and then just getting on all of your socials.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and that was my last question.
Sure.
So we usually end the podcast with, asking my guest about, three things that you're grateful for, or you can also talk about three things that you're proud of about yourself.
Okay. Let's see. I have two things that I'm proud of that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay, let's go with that.
The two things that I'm proud of is starting a business. I think it's really intimidating, but if you can, definitely do it. It's one of the most rewarding experiences I've had, and also so many learning lessons out of it. I think if you're able to try it out, it's worth experiencing, because there's nothing that beats the feeling of being your own boss and being able to make the final decision. So whether you're working in corporate or you're working client facing, it's always what your boss wants, what the client wants. And so one of the most rewarding feelings is say, I want the logo to look like this, or here's how we're going to run the business. And really being able to test out your own series in a place where no one is judging you or telling you it's not a good idea, you can't do it. My second would be moving to Toronto. So my husband and I moved to Toronto pretty much on a whim. We have no family out here. We came here once for a friend's wedding and just fell in love with the city. And 6 months later, we moved. It was very quick. I also wouldn't recommend moving that quickly, but it was such a great experience because all of our friends and family are in Vancouver. And so we moved out here for business and for work, with no family, no friends. I was trying to find a place to live, and it was a really great learning experience and life lessons on coming out of my shell and being able to meet new people. So as I'm sure you know, Vancouver is a very small place, and being from there, I was always surrounded by friends and family and never really had to go out of my shell and meet new people. So here I really had to make an effort to say yes to things. And for the first year, we said yes to any kind of social event or gathering that came our way. I did have a job when I came here, and that really helped me build out my network. I met some amazing people at my last job here, and still see them all the time. We're in a book club. So it's been a really great growth experience to have to start over from absolute scratch. Like we bought all new furniture, found a place here, and just starting. It's a really great experience to know that you can really start fresh from somewhere new. And it's empowering because you're like, if I ever had to start again or had to move somewhere else, I could do it because I've done it once. It can be done again. I understand all the different things that go into it. So I think that it was really rewarding of an experience to come out here and do things by yourselves.
Definitely. Yeah, just curious, like what made you fall in love with Toronto, like moving from Vancouver, I guess. Like was it more of like the people or more of like the city?
Yeah, I get this all the time because people from here, they're like, Vancouver is so beautiful. You have the mountains and the ocean. And I'm like, I know, it's great. And I love it. But it's a bit of a slow, sleepy city. I really love the fast pace of Toronto, and maybe that'll change with time, but there's a lot of opportunities here. People I find here are a bit more open to making new friends. And this was something that I learned. So people who are originally from Toronto moved to Vancouver, they say that Vancouver people don't want to make new friends. They'll say, oh yeah, that's great. I'll invite you over to my place and we'll hang out, but they never do. But we found that in Toronto, people will say, yeah, come to my thing. I'm having people over, or we're doing this thing, come out. So we found that the people were a lot more welcoming. And it was very easy to make friends here.
Wow.
And yeah, so that was really great. We just like the lifestyle a bit. There's some more things to do. It is much more food, dining, shopping, nightlife here than Vancouver is. But that's a bit more my pace. Don't get me wrong. I love the beach. I miss the beach dearly. um, but it's, I think just the lifestyle suits our life where we're at right now. And, yeah, it was really great. A great experience.
Amazing. No,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a really good insight because yeah, I feel like I've had kind of like a similar experience living in Vancouver, where this is kind of like how the vibe is with Vancouver. Like, yeah, sure, people are really nice, they're really
Hmm.
friendly, but it's really hard to make connections with people here because yeah, like we don't really follow up with a lot of people. But yeah, that's really good to know.
Hmm.
But yeah, thank you again so much for coming on the podcast episode
Thanks for
today.
having me.
And yeah, it was such a good conversation, like really full of insights. You shared so much about your experience and learnings, and I'm sure that's going to help like a lot of people, especially women who are either in this space already, or maybe they're thinking of starting out, or maybe they've just started out. So I would definitely encourage them to follow your advice. And then yeah, I can't wait to look forward to what you're working on right now and in the future. And yeah, we definitely wish you all the best. And thanks again for your insights today.
Thanks for having me. I had a great time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.